Someone I was mentoring a little while ago came with me as I was leading worship at an event. And after I got down and we'd had this really, really beautiful time of worship together, this person turned to me and was like, I want to do that. I want to stand up there and lead people the way that you did and play guitar and, be up on stage. Of course, they were missing a bit what had really happened, and maybe their motives were misplaced. And then they said, how do you get there? How do you get to that point where you get up and you lead people in that way? They were looking at the expanse of the room and the crowd and the bigness of the event and the emotions and the way that God's Spirit was working in people's hearts as we worshiped together. But I told them about the expense, that it started years and years and years ago. First of all, learning guitar, clumsily playing those chords and building up strength in my hands. It started when I first wrote my song of worship to God in my bedroom, with no intention of sharing it, only the intention of meeting with God. It started with leading worship in lots of different places and always just giving my all, whether it was 3 people in a house group or hundreds of people in a church service. They had this idea that actually it took something big to get up on stage and do that. Something that maybe they could take on, a big challenge. And actually, it was little, small steps. That person is a great person who God is speaking to and working in, but they haven't yet learned guitar. They haven't yet moved to that place. Today's reading is John chapter 12, and we're in verses 20 all the way down to 36. And it's a beautiful passage. Throughout the Gospel of John, Jesus has said, my hour has not yet come. The big moment, the moment when he would be lifted up on the cross and the glory would be revealed through the broken Son. And yet here we have the moment where Jesus says, now the hour has come, in verse 23. There's loads of rich teaching and deep ideas and concepts from Jesus here. But what's interesting is the change from my hour has not yet come to now is the hour is triggered by some Greeks. Some Greeks come. They approach the disciples with the Greek names and they say, we would like to see Jesus. The disciples with the Greek names then go to Jesus, and that's the moment when he knows. That's the moment when he knows that this is going to change. He's going to journey to the cross. Sometimes in life, the bigger the call, a call that would cross borders and start to reach out to Greek-speaking peoples, a call that would reach out from your life to affect others through your family, your love and mission, your business, your work. Sometimes the bigger the call, the greater the cost. We know that when we read the stories of great women, of great men. Often the more they have achieved, the more it costs them to do so. Jesus expresses this in this incredibly beautiful verse. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. This is a metaphor that a lot of Jesus' hearers who lived in a more agricultural age and society would have understood. a seed goes to the ground and dies, it is no longer a seed. It has given up what it is in order to become something else, in order to expand and become more. Jesus has just had the crowds welcome him in, ready to anoint him as king, ready to put him at the front of their battle, ready to take on their cause, to fight for them. And Jesus says, no, that's not how this is going to come. It's going to come through me dying, me being planted. It's not going to come through the expanse of a political earthly kingdom. It's going to come through the expense of the cross, of God's Son being sown that we might find life. This year has been a year of sacrifices, small sacrifices that have added up to not feel so small. And this is a time of continuing to make those sacrifices. But I wonder, spiritually, in terms of where God might call and use you, is there an area today that as you read this passage and you engage with Jesus' journey to the cross, his boldness in approaching that hour of his greatest sacrifice, I wonder if God would speak to you about the sacrifice he's calling you to make, about the journey that he's calling you to make. We've given up much in the pandemic in order that we might come through it together. We often see greatness as coming through adding things, through building things, through growing things. But Jesus here says greatness will come through cost. So as you read today's passage, pray to God and ask him, what is he calling you to give up? What is he calling you not to replace the other side of all this? I believe God has a hope and a future for each one of us and for his church. But I know that often stepping into the future that God has for us, the plans and the promises, comes through surrender. May you find that place of surrender as you open your hearts to God today.